Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Today channel. Taylor can lose her Ridge because of her desperation. This time, Taylor Hayes might have gone a bit too far. She was, of course, invited to the most recent presentation of Forrester Creations. Naturally, she was added to the guest list since she and Ridge Forrester have reconciled, but the good doctor has no business interfering backstage. Taylor, you should sit down, preferably in the audience. Taylor wanted to wish Ridge success backstage as soon as she got to the concert. She did that, which is fair enough, but she later chose to stay behind to help her partner. Taylor made a literal mess after running into someone, and Ridge was too preoccupied to give her any attention. She should have gone to sit down at that point, but Taylor saw it as an opportunity to argue with Brooke Logan. Taylor might have had good reason to confront Brooke on any other day, but not tonight. Not in the midst of the chaos backstage. Since Brooke was genuinely busy, he attempted to defuse the issue by eventually leaving. Taylor was on a mission, but she should have known that this wasn't the right moment to leave Brooke alone. Inadvertently shutting them both in, Taylor followed Brooke into a dressing room and closed the door so she could scold her privately. The fact that Brooke is unable to leave the dressing room after being expected to walk as the showstopper caused her to lose it. Brooke is now at the mercy of someone hearing her yelling from behind a locked door down the hall after Eric Forrester, John McCook, handpicked her to wear his best design for the performance. Taylor and Ridge are already on borrowed time. Even while Taylor claims that she and Ridge are stronger than ever, that doesn't mean it's true. Ridge won't remain, even though he immediately returned to Taylor after thinking Brooke had betrayed him and started making plans for a new life with her. In reality, we know he won't stay if history repeats itself. Everyone holds Taylor to a high standard, so Ridge will not be pleased with her interrupting the Forresters' special day with nothing but rudeness and nastiness. In fact, it might provide him with the justification he's secretly seeking to return to Brooke. Dazzle Ridge is where Brooke hides. As envious Taylor Hayes, Rebecca Budig, watched, Brooke Logan managed to get away in time to impress Ridge Forrester on the runway, according to the Bold and the Beautiful recap for Friday, April 25. The model swirled and let Daphne Rose's scents fill the air during the fashion presentation on Friday's B&B program, and the visitors smelled with delight. In a backstage area, John McCook's character Eric Forrester was hammering home the point that Ridge should remember his identity when he's with Brooke. While watching the fashion show on a nearby monitor, Eric also had a pleasant chat with Zend Forrester Dominguez, Delon de Metz. Eric gave Zend a lot of credit for remaining at Forrester Creations and standing in for the family through the entire takeover crisis. Eric had Will Spencer and Electra Forrester look for Brooke because the showstopper was almost ready. When Katie Logan learned that Brooke was gone, she ended up accompanying Will and Electra on their hunt. When Steffi saw that Taylor was missing, she asked Ridge where her mother was. As Brooke knocked on the door and begged for assistance, she was in full-blown panic mode. Brooke clarified that Taylor had locked them in the room because it was a vault. Although Taylor didn't have her phone to contact for assistance, she maintained that she didn't intentionally lock them in and believed Brooke was exaggerating the situation. For the benefit of their families, Brooke once made a suggestion that they wanted to be friends or at the very least, grown-ups. Regardless of how she attempted to justify it later, Taylor forced Brooke to come clean about how she had betrayed Ridge by taking the CEO position. Ridge's opinion of Brooke was irrevocably changed by Taylor's actions, and he predicted that nothing would make him reconsider his mind. Brooke began her attempts to leave, secretly hoping that the showstopper would make things better. Before Katie, Will, and Electra discovered them stranded in the vault, Taylor began to suspect more and more of Brooke's activities. Charlie Weber used his key to release Taylor and Brooke after being asked to come save them. He sent Ridge to stall on stage after expressing worries about the showstopper with Eric. After giving a speech, Ridge said they might have to end the event early since he didn't want to let the audience down. But Brooke wore the showstopper dress, which resembled the Portofino style with some contemporary touches. Brooke came prancing out and blew Ridge and all the guests away just when it appeared like they might have to miss the showstopper. As they celebrated the end of the fashion presentation, Ridge took Brooke's hand. Taylor glanced at what was going on the runway around the corner and didn't appear happy about it. Steffi approached Taylor from behind and became worried about her mother's response. According to teasers for The Bold and the Beautiful, Brooke may be mentally celebrating her victory, but she is about to receive some unfavorable news. Particularly when it came to Ridge Forrester, the man who had captured her heart for decades. Taylor Hayes was never one to stand by and watch while the tides of fate were turned against her. While Brooke Logan and Eric Forrester devised what they thought was the ideal scheme to ensure Ridge's future by bringing him back to Brooke through a well-planned fashion display and family get-together, they overlooked the fact that Taylor was still very much in the game. She didn't merely raise an eyebrow when she learned of their plan, she raised hell. Taylor began to disassemble everything with deliberate precision and that recognizable glimmer of resolve in her eyes. She started by sneaking behind the scenes into the logistics crew and making last-minute tweaks that caused the concert to go awry. These small adjustments caused Brooke's entrance to be delayed and Ridge's pre-show itinerary to be conveniently redirected. Just as Eric and Brooke were preparing to complete their surprise with a romantic flourish on the catwalk, there was a press leak, which was anonymous, of course, indicating that Ridge had been privately doubting Brooke's role in his life once more. Additionally, Taylor positioned herself flawlessly backstage as the event started, anticipating the ideal opportunity to present itself. Her chance arrived quickly. Taylor entered the dressing room pretending to mend fences just as Brooke was being zipped into the big showstopper gown, anticipating her arrival as the evening's queen. However, Brooke was unprepared for a verbal barrage. "Do you really believe this will make him love you again?" was the question that weighed heavy in the air as Taylor confronted her with Ridge's own comments from the past, along with the facts and tears they had shared. The conversation got explosive. Always quick to respond, Brooke accused Taylor of desperation and manipulation, but Taylor wasn't going to back down this time. Moments before he was scheduled to take the stage, Ridge himself entered the fray at the conclusion of the dispute, surprised to see the two women facing off. This was the height of the tension. Taylor's meddling and Ridge's own bewilderment caused the carefully cultivated strategy that Eric and Brooke had been working on to crumble in that one moment. It didn't end there, either. Empowered and unrepentant, Taylor approached Eric and wanted to know why he was so committed to pulling Ridge back toward Brooke when his son was obviously in need of space to forge his own way. Flushed and cornered, Eric attempted to explain his motives, but Taylor's comments rang true. Ridge had fallen victim to a game of nostalgia and misguided romanticism. To her astonishment, Ridge started nodding in accord as she accused them both of holding him back rather than allowing him to advance. In an attempt to escape the pandemonium that was suddenly erupting around him, Ridge decided to go backstage rather than walk the runway with Brooke while the cameras were flashing and the audience was muttering in disbelief. What was supposed to be a triumphant reclamation of love instead became a tabloid sham. And Taylor stayed cool, collected, even triumphant, while Brooke attempted to put her broken hopes back together and Eric frantically tried to control the story. But for Taylor, it wasn't about winning. Making sure Ridge wasn't forced into a future that resembled his past too much was the goal. Even though she ruined the plan, she did it on purpose, to keep a man she loved from making a choice based more on showmanship and shame than on clarity and true desire. At that point, it didn't matter if Ridge would ultimately pick her. The fact that she allowed him to make a choice at all was important. And that type of honesty is more significant than any extravagant gesture or glamorous fashion finale in Los Angeles, where allegiance is ephemeral and love triangles are constantly changing. Viewers were left wondering if this was Taylor's redemption arc, her ascent from the ashes of the Ridge-Brooke fire, as she left the turmoil with her head held high. Or perhaps the start of a new battle for Ridge's affections? A web of deceit reveals how Eric's covert plan to bring Ridge and Brooke back together betrays Taylor's trust. Normally a representation of grace and strength, the Forrester estate had become the scene of a covert but terrible treachery. The patriarch of the family, Eric Forrester, had always taken pleasure in his intelligence and justice, but his most recent plan went too far even he hadn't expected. Persuaded that Ridge should be with Brooke, Eric had started a clandestine scheme to ruin his son's relationship with Taylor, using Brooke and Donna in his cunning schemes. Why was it worse? Taylor had trusted the Forresters to be mindful of her delicate condition. However, Eric believed that love made the deception acceptable. Eric's plan was meticulously carried out behind closed doors. He carefully planned Ridge and Brooke's chance meetings, making sure they were alone in private places. These included dimly lit dinners at Il Giardino, late-night emergency meetings at work, and even a well-planned trip to Big Bear disguised as a business trip. Donna, who has always been devoted to her sister Brooke, performed her role perfectly, subtly bringing up Ridge and Brooke's past, their connection, and their fate. Despite her best efforts to move on, Brooke's heart remained attached to Ridge, and she allowed herself to be drawn into the plot. Taylor, meantime, was recuperating from a previous health incident and was blissfully oblivious to the underlying currents circulating about her. Finally, she had given herself permission to hope for a future with Ridge, one unencumbered by the back-and-forth drama that had characterized their lives for decades. Ridge had also been adamant about his dedication to her, stifling any rumors of doubt with resolute statements. He had informed Eric bluntly, "Taylor is my choice," not realizing that his own father was actively working against those exact words. But there were repercussions for Eric's tactics. Ridge's instincts grew stronger the more he pushed. There was a strange feeling. Why did Donna and Brooke appear everywhere at once? Why did he tend to bring up the good old days with Brooke in every chat with his father? Then, without any opportunity for misunderstanding, Ridge interrupted a private conversation between Eric and Donna and said, "We just need to make Ridge see that Taylor isn't right for him. Brooke is his true love." Ridge felt the treachery as if it were a bodily blow. The man he had respected his entire life, his own father, had been planning an effort to ruin his happiness. Even worse, Taylor's faith in him, and the entire Forrester family, had been betrayed in the most heinous manner. The tension between Ridge and Eric boiled over as Ridge faced him. Ridge roared, "You had no right," his voice shaking with rage. Eric, who was usually so calm, stood his ground, his desperation shown. "Taylor has done nothing but love and support this family, and you're exploiting her when she's at her weakest?" he asked. "I did it because I know what's best for you, for this family. Brooke is," Ridge bellowed, "not your decision to make." The remarks, a scathing condemnation of Eric's behavior, lingered in the atmosphere. The fallout was now imminent. When Taylor found out, she would be devastated. When Brooke realized how much she had been manipulated, she would have to face her own involvement. What about Ridge? He found himself at a crossroads, between the family that had just deceived him and the woman he loved. There was no doubt that Eric's interference had gone beyond a certain point, it had completely destroyed it. Additionally, Forrester Creations would be affected for years to come. When Brooke and Ridge reunite on the runway, Taylor's heart breaks. When Brooke rekindles their unquestionable chemistry with Ridge during the conclusion of Forrester's fashion show, leaving Taylor to observe from the background, Taylor and Steffi are crushed. At the fashion extravaganza, Taylor left shattered as Brooke reclaims Ridge. When Brooke Logan appeared from a closed dressing room just in time to enthrall Ridge Forrester on the runway, the fashion show finale devolved into a heartbreaking spectacle, leaving Taylor Hayes to watch her dreams fade away in the darkness. Everything changed in that moment. The Forrester fashion show's most dramatic moment turned into a relationship game-changer just when we thought it could get much more dramatic. Brooke barely made it out in time to walk the catwalk in Eric Forrester's stunning white gown after she and her competitor Taylor were unintentionally confined in a dressing room. Then? It was pure soap magic. Ridge's face told it all when Brooke walked onto that catwalk. The man was completely enthralled. You could almost feel memories of their romantic Portofino days replaying in his head as she met his gaze. Since, well, the last time these two got back together, I haven't witnessed chemistry this intense. On the runway, when Ridge took Brooke's hand, volumes were conveyed by the quiet gesture. The audience may have been cheering the style, but what they were truly seeing was the unbreakable attraction between these two. Heartbreak from Taylor's front row view. Taylor, poor thing. She had to watch from the background as her rival took both her mans and the spotlight after fleeing the locked dressing room drama with Brooke, where tensions were already at an all-time high. That look on her face? Absolute destruction. This was more than just a fashion display, let's face it. In a single catwalk moment, Taylor witnessed years of optimism being dashed. Taylor had to see firsthand how quickly Brooke can regain Ridge's attention with a single, meaningful look while standing next to Steffy Forrester, who appeared similarly devastated. Can we discuss the irony? Taylor found herself having a front-row ticket to exactly what she feared most, the unmistakable bond between these two that never seemed to be buried for long, after all those warnings she had given Ridge about Brooke over the years. The stage is set by backstage drama. The backstage turmoil that preceded the runway moment was just as heated as the runway moment itself. Are Taylor and Brooke confined in a dressing room together? That is the best soap opera you can write. Taylor actually had the audacity to question Brooke's significance to the program when she frantically banged on the door, shouting that she had to leave before it was too late. Really? She still undervalues the Logan power after all these years? When Brooke smugly informed Taylor that Ridge still refers to her as his Logan, Taylor snapped that she never wanted to hear that moniker, or Doc, ever again. The passionate argument between these rivals was everything. The claws of this enmity remain razor-sharp even after decades. I'm grateful that Will Spencer, Electra Forrester, and Katie Logan were able to help, but I can't help but wonder if Taylor secretly hoped that door had been locked a bit longer. Afterward, what happens? The real drama is just getting started, even if the fashion show is ended. According to the teasers for next week, Brooke is reaffirming her conviction that Ridge is her destiny, while Eric is assuring his son that Brooke is where you belong. Ridge, meanwhile, appears conflicted and maintains that he is committed to someone else. But after that thrilling moment on the catwalk? I doubt that he is as committed as he says he is. Will Taylor come to terms with the fact that she is losing the battle? Will Steffy intervene to protect her mother and go up against Brooke once more? How about Hope Logan, who appears to be behind her mother's efforts to reclaim Ridge? There is no doubt about it, this triangle tug-of-war is far from over, and hearts will continue to shatter before someone gives up. A wonderfully dramatic backdrop for the most recent Logan family crisis was the rain-soaked streets of Los Angeles on the night Katie Logan's life was in jeopardy. When Katie, upset at yet another Forrester betrayal, found herself stranded on a twisting canyon road as her car hydroplaned furiously toward the railing, what had started off as a typical evening swiftly descended into chaos. Glass shattered, metal screeched, and then there was silence. In the meantime, Brooke Logan stood in front of a floor-length mirror at a lavish bridal boutique, lovingly fingering the lace of a couture wedding gown, blissfully oblivious to her sister's danger. The irony was cruel. Brooke was dreaming of walking down the aisle toward Ridge, again, while Katie struggled for consciousness in a damaged car, completely unaware of the destruction her romantic recycling caused to those around her. The rescue happened with the urgency of a movie. Just in time, Carter noticed the wreckage while heading home after a late meeting at Forrester Creations. With a thread of blood following her temple, he discovered Katie sprawled over the steering wheel when he pulled the car door open, his military reflexes taking over. He whispered, "Hold on, Katie, just hold on," his voice firm even as the panic tore at his throat. Afterwards, paramedics would explain that those crucial minutes were crucial. A final, unanswered call appeared on Katie's phone as flashing lights cast an eerie blue glow over the area. Brooke's contact photo was beaming obliviously from the screen. Back at the bridal boutique, Donna was swooning over the veil selections while Brooke's laughter tinkled like champagne flutes. As she adjusted the delicate tulle, Donna moaned, "Ridge is going to go crazy when he sees you in this." It should have been a happy time, but behind the surface there was a disturbing undercurrent. Why did Brooke's joys always seem to be accompanied by the tragedies of others? The bridal fantasy was shattered by the salesperson's shock when a breaking news alert appeared on the boutique's TV, *breaking, local socialite and FC executive Katie Logan hospitalized after near-fatal crash. Brooke's reflection in the mirror went pale, the ivory gown abruptly taking on the appearance of a shroud. The waiting area at the hospital turned into a battleground for long-standing grievances. Of all people, Steffy was the first to come, putting aside her enmity with the Logans for a minute as she silently supported Carter by holding onto his shoulder. Hope stormed through the doors, her mascara streaked with tears as she demanded answers that no one could provide. Then came Brooke, her fancy heels tapping hollowly on the linoleum, her hand still gripping her bridal magazine like a security blanket. Across the sterile room, the sisters' gazes locked, Brooke's full of a guilt too great to express, Steffi's contemptuous, and Hope's accusatory. The family let out a collective sigh when the doctor finally announced that Katie's condition had stabilized, but the true reckoning had only just begun. The question that hung like a guillotine over Brooke's most recent love ideal, revealing the unpleasant truth she had been avoiding, was Katie's first conscious statement that would torment Brooke for the rest of her life. "Were you even going to tell me about the wedding?" Before the terrible collateral damage became unavoidable, how many times could she pursue her happiness? Two truths became apparent as morning dawned over Los Angeles. Brooke's bridal happiness now tasted like ashes, and Katie's near-death experience had rocked the Logan Forrester dynasty to its foundation. A sisterly link broke somewhere in the quiet between heart monitor beeps, and this time, no amount of Destiny's Child platitudes could mend it. It's a day you must watch to see how Brooke and Taylor's presence causes stress. As soon as Brooke Logan and Taylor Hayes entered the same room, the atmosphere at Forrester Creations was charged with tension, an electric undercurrent of unresolved past, acerbic glances, and the kind of implicit competitiveness that could make even the most self-assured executive pause before speaking. Everyone at the renowned fashion firm, from the interns to the board members, could sense that today was not like any other. It was a powder keg ready to blow. Between them stood Ridge Forrester, his jaw clenched so tightly that it cracked under the pressure of their combined energies, his normally authoritative presence weakened. It was a day when every look had significance, every word was dripping with meaning, and just breathing seemed to start a new, silent conflict. You had to pay attention because the drama between Brooke and Taylor was not only predictable but legendary when they shared a scene. Before Brooke, ever the provocateur, casually brought up Ridge's recent late-night visit to her residence, the boardroom meeting had begun like any other. Her tone was just implying enough to make Taylor's fingers clench around her pen. Never one to back down, Taylor responded with a scathing comment about boundaries and moving forward, her eyes meeting Brooke's with a predatory intensity. Ridge's words were like gasoline on a fire, and his attempt to mediate only made matters worse. He said, "Can we just focus on the collection?" But the harm had already been done. The true meeting was about history, domination, and two women who would not allow one another to prevail, even if it meant destroying the business in the process. It had nothing to do with fashion. Whispers spread like wildfire outside the office. Hope, whose customary optimism was replaced with cautious trepidation, shared a knowing look with Steffi, who was observing from the doorway with her signature sneer. Taylor's reprimand of Carter for taking sides, a charge he strongly rejected, although his lingering glance at Brooke didn't help his case, put him in the crossfire. Carter is typically the voice of reason. Donna, Brooke's normally toughest defender, hesitated before intervening because she could sense that the tension was too great for her to handle with her typical charm. Then came the moment that would have fans shouting at their televisions and send shockwaves around Los Angeles. Their fingertips met and time seemed to stop as Brooke grabbed for the same cloth swatch Taylor had been studying. The room held its breath. Was this the catalyst that will finally set off the long-awaited war? Ridge realized too late that he had lost control of the situation and could only watch as years of bottled-up animosity threatened to explode. Brooke's razor-sharp response to Taylor's cold "some things never change" was, "and some things should." By the time the altercation peaked, it was obvious that this was more than a trivial disagreement. It was time to face up. Taylor had always felt uneasy around Brooke, a living reminder of the love she could never quite claim. Furthermore, Brooke found that Taylor's presence in Ridge's life was a pain in her side and evidence that fate wasn't as straightforward as she had always thought. Their tension wasn't just personal, it spread to everyone in their vicinity, transforming business into a military strategy and comrades into enemies. One question remained when the show came to an end: how much longer could this go before someone broke? The response would alter everything. And for that reason, you were unable to turn away.